Years old. Don't I deserve the right of way? Of course I do. I turned right into my street, and this policeman stopped me, and he said, "You forgot to signal." I must have turned it off. The thing is always on. So I said, "Well, listen, young man," I said, "I have lived on this street for 30 years. Why should I signal?" And he gave me a little yellow slip of paper with his autograph on it. I have a lot of those slips of paper with those autographs on it, and that's why I've decided to take up skateboarding and get around town. Some young thing, just about your age, said to me, "Why don't you get an Xbox?" And I said, "Don't you talk dirty to me." Anyway, I stand before you, barely shaking, my underwear dry, and the reason I am in such, you can check after the show, the reason I am in such good shape is because of my attitude. Always remember, your attitude is everything. I got my attitude from my mother. I got a lot of things from my mother, which is why I've been in therapy for 75 years. My mother made Hitler look like Shirley Temple. She yelled at my father so much that when she died, he thought he'd gone deaf. And he wanted to take out his secretary after she died. And he did. He took her out. She was a lovely girl. Her name was Arlene. And when he came back, he said, "You know, it won't work, Lynn, Ruth." And I said, "Why, Daddy?" He said, "Because she wanted me to do all the talking." If you know anything about Jewish men in a marriage, they never say a word. I don't think my father said anything for 30 years. My mother did all the talking. My poor father, he didn't know how to carry on a conversation. 30 years. Well, anyway, my mother thought she had very good advice for young ladies. And she said, "All nice girls get married." Did your mother pull that crap on you? Yeah. Yours didn't, did she? Yeah, they stopped doing that, thank God. Anyway, mine said all nice girls get married. Now, present company excluded, which is just you, but present company excluded. Ladies, have you looked at our choices? There are two kinds of men. Actually, in Brighton, there are three. They're the kind that smoke Marlboros, don't wear condoms, and beat their wives. I married one of those. And he had just been discharged from Korea. So when he saw me, it was the first American that he saw after he had been discharged from Korea. And he wanted me to treat him like the Korean women treated our soldiers. You know, make him dinner, iron his shirts, give him happy endings. This is the girl that couldn't hit a tennis ball, couldn't bounce a ball, or ride a two-wheel bicycle. I assure you, I was terrible at it. But let me tell you what he was like. When we were engaged, my mother-in-law took me to a butcher shop, and she pointed to a 2-pound chicken, and she said, "That's how big he was when he was born." And I said, "Nothing much grew, did it?" And he was really nearsighted, really nearsighted. So when he went to bed, he would take off his glasses, and he would say, "Where are you?" And I said, "If you can find me, you can have me." And that's why I was a virgin when we were divorced. The other husband was a different kind of guy. He was a Brighton kind of guy. He loved his mother. He danced in the ballet, and he did your nails, you know. You should have seen him in tights. It didn't do me a hell of a lot of good. On our wedding night, I caught him with the bellboy. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm showing him my pas de deux." I said, "Why is he crying?" He said, "Because he wanted a tip, and I gave him the whole thing." At the divorce, the judge said, and I will never forget this, the judge said, "Thank God there were no children." I said, "Had there been children, there would have been a second coming." And God knows there wasn't a first. So with husbands like that and a mother like that, it's no surprise that I had an eating disorder at a time when nobody knew what an eating disorder was. Nobody knew what it was. I think it must have started when I was in high school, but it didn't become apparent until I was married, because when I was married, for a wedding gift, we got a blender. Now, I don't know what any of you remember this, but in 1956, a blender was a very innovative kitchen appliance. It was very exciting to get this blender. And what I would do is I would fill up the container. It was called a Waring blender. I'd fill up the container with ice, instant coffee, and vanilla. And I would live on that. It made a very frothy drink. And I would live on that for weeks at a time while I read cookbooks as if they were bestsellers, and I cooked gourmet meals for Tommy and his fellow students at Harvard Business School. That's where we were. And then after 2 weeks, or maybe 3, just living on this liquid, I'd crack. And while Tommy was asleep, I'd come downstairs and I'd open up the refrigerator and I'd eat everything in it. I'd roast a chicken, a loaf of bread, a pound of butter. I didn't know why I was eating like that. I didn't know why I couldn't stop, and I was terrified. One day, I decided I would make a chocolate icebox cake for Tommy and another couple that I had invited over for coffee. And I went to the Great Atlantic and Pacific. That's the first big supermarket chain in America, the A&P. And I went there and got a dozen eggs, a quart of whipping cream, a package of ladyfingers, and 6 one-pound bars of semi-sweet chocolate. I went through the line, and when I got to the cashier, I said to her, "I'm making a chocolate icebox cake." She said, "Oh, it looks good and easy." I said, "Oh, it is." She said, "That'll be $7.95, please." So I paid her, went out to the car, put all my groceries beside me, and before I got to the first traffic light, I'd eaten all 6 chocolate bars. So I turned around, went back to the A&P, and got 6 more chocolate bars. But when I went through the line, I got the same girl. So I thought, oh my God, I better say something. So I said, "It looks so good, I thought I'd make 2 of them." She said, "Oh, you have to give me the recipe." I said, "Oh, I will. And I paid her, went out to the car, put the 6 bars beside me, and before I got out of the parking lot, I'd eaten all 6 chocolate bars. So I thought, the hell with it. I'll make a lemon cake. And I didn't eat it. I didn't eat it until after the guests had left and Tommy was asleep. So you can see that I have a very strange relationship with food. If I see someone like you eating a pizza, I think, oh God, I wish I had the courage to do that. If I see someone like you licking an ice cream cone, I want to fuck it. So you can see that I've got a really deranged sense. But on top of that, I'm Jewish. And for Jewish people, the 3 major events of every day are breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Food is so important to Jewish people that when my mother wanted to come on to my father, she would say, "Hey, honey, how about some French toast?" That happened twice. I had a sister. Anyway, so because breakfast, lunch, and dinner are the major events of my life, usually when I wake up, I try to figure out what I'm going to have for breakfast, what I'm going to have for lunch and dinner. I'm pretty good with breakfast and lunch. By the time it's dinner time, I usually forget what I'm going to make. And that involves making a whole new shopping list, going shopping, and I end up eating at 11 o'clock at night. So on the time that I am telling you about, I decided, okay, I'm going to make something I know I'll remember. And I decided to make a rice dish, salad, and tea. That's not so hard. Rice dish, salad, tea. When I got into the kitchen at 6 o'clock, I remembered. So let's hear it for me. Yay me. I remembered. Yay. That's good. Okay. And I set up the kitchen. Now you have to sort of pay attention to what I'm doing here because this takes concentration. I put the teapot on high for the tea. When I make rice, I like to fry some onions and stuff in it. So I put the frying pan with some olive oil, that's healthy, and I put that on medium. And then I don't like to use water in rice. I use chicken stock. So I have the chicken stock on medium. So now you've got the pictures. The teapot is getting ready to boil. The frying pan is sort of sizzling, ready for the onions. And the chicken stock is just simmering over in the corner. I pulled out the chopping board and I began to chop the onions. While I was chopping the onions, my contact lens fell into the onion. and I couldn't see real well, but I felt around. I found the contact lens, and I took it into the bathroom and put it in the cleaning solution. Then I came back in the kitchen, and I heard this big pop, and I realized, the teapot is just burned out. So I took the teapot out to the recycle bin, and when I came back in the kitchen, it had a terrible smell, and the frying pan is just burned out. So I took the frying pan out to the recycle bin, and then I came back in, and I couldn't see, and my eye was watering, but I groped around, and I found another tea kettle, and I filled it with water. I got a little bit of water on my shoe and some on my blouse, but that was okay, and I got it to go, started the fire, and then I felt around for a frying pan, and I found that. I poured some oil on the frying pan, and some of it landed on the floor, and I did slip and fall, but I picked myself up, and I got the thing going. So I had the teapot going again, the frying pan going in, and I thought, you better not make that salad. You're not seeing real well because, when you only see with one eye, you have no depth vision. So I thought, you try to make that salad, you're going to cut off your thumb. But I was really hungry, and I thought, well, I can still see color. I'm going to chance it. So I opened up the refrigerator, and I took out the carrots and the tomatoes and more onions and the lettuce and the green pepper and the red pepper. Got it all out there on the table, and I thought, okay, you be careful because otherwise you're really going to hurt yourself. And I lifted the knife to cut the carrot when I heard this big loud ring, and I realized the battery in my hearing aid had gone. So I pulled my hearing aid out, but my hands were wet, and it fell on the floor. And I was reaching around trying to find the hearing aid when I heard a big, big pop, and I realized, oh, shit, the second kettle is just gone. So I took the second kettle out to the recycle bin, and I came back in, and I said, the hell with it. I'm ordering out. But I couldn't see the telephone number on the refrigerator, and I wouldn't be able to hear the guy anyway when he answered the phone. So I thought, well, I can still see big shapes. I'll drive to Tesco's. The policeman took me to the emergency room, and they kept me overnight because of the concussion, and the lady from Senior Help brought me home the next day. She took the onion